molecules and hydrogen bonding. While molecules are electrically neutral, their electrical charge can be unevenly distributed, dramatically affecting their behavior. If one atom in a two-atom molecule attracts electrons much more strongly than the other, the result is that one side of the molecule will have a negative charge and the other a positive charge. Each charged side of the molecule attracts the oppositely charged side of other nearby molecules. The result is that these molecules are strongly attracted to one another. One consequence is a higher boiling point, since it is harder to get them to escape the liquid. Molecules are nonpolar if they are composed of the same atoms. For instance, all diatomic gases are nonpolar. If they're composed of only hydrogen and carbon, since both atoms have a comparably strong attraction to electrons, or if they're symmetrical. For instance, carbon dioxide is nonpolar because the carbons are on either side of the oxygen. Molecules are polar if they're composed of different atoms, and one atom more strongly attracts electrons than the other, and the molecule is not symmetrical. For example, CO2 is nonpolar since there's a carbon on both sides of the oxygen. On the other hand, CO is polar since that balance is not present, and oxygen very strongly attracts electrons and carbon does not, making the oxygen side more negative. The polarity of hydrogen fluoride is illustrated here. Fluorine attracts electrons much more strongly than hydrogen, resulting in the fluorine side being negatively charged. A molecule with a positive and negative side is called a dipole. We use this symbol to designate a dipole that has two poles. The plus end is on the more positive end of the molecule, and the arrow points towards the more negative end. When hydrogen is bonded to fluorine, oxygen, or nitrogen, the molecule is polar. That is because those latter three atoms pull the electrons towards themselves, making them negative and the hydrogen positive. This is not the case when hydrogen is bonded to atoms which have a weaker attraction for electrons, like carbon. Polar molecules attract one another. The positive end of one molecule is attracted to the negative end of the others and vice versa. Here, the arrows between the positive sides and negative sides of a group of polar molecules illustrate some of the many forces that bind them together. When hydrogen is bonded to nitrogen, oxygen, or fluorine, the electrons of the molecule are pulled away from the hydrogen atom, making that side positive and the other side negative. This makes the molecule somewhat polar. This results in a relatively strong intermolecular force binding the molecules together with one another. These intermolecular bonds are called hydrogen bonds. Shown here are hydrogen bonds between three pairs of molecules. The top pair is ammonia and water, the middle pair is two water molecules, the bottom pair is hydrogen, fluorine, and water. The intramolecular covalent bonds are shown as solid blue lines. The intermolecular hydrogen bonds are shown as purple dashed lines. Hydrogen bonding arises in part from the high electronegativity and small radius of nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine. When hydrogen is bonded to one of those very electronegative elements, the hydrogen nucleus is exposed. Click here to watch an animation about hydrogen bonding. Water is a rare example of a substance that is less dense in the solid state than in the liquid state. Therefore, solid water, or ice, floats on liquid water. If it didn't, life on Earth would be very different. For instance, lakes would freeze from the bottom, and fish couldn't survive winters. Hydrogen bonding creates the space in ice that explains its low density. Click here to watch an animation of the water-ice transition. Hydrogen bonds play an important role in polymers, both synthetic, plastics, and natural, proteins, RNA, and DNA. Hydrogen bonding stabilizes the secondary structure of proteins. Hydrogen bonding is the basis of base pairing in nucleic acids, RNA, and DNA. DNA is stabilized by between 10 to the 7th to 10 to the 8th hydrogen bonds in each molecule.